One more minute and then we're going to start things. Thank you to those who are already here and settled. All right, well, it is 12:05, so I think we are going to get things kicked off. Thank you all for joining today, for coming over to our station in this this startup week to the How to Build Your Brand in Tech panel. We are excited to chat with you all. My name is Stuart Rowe. I'm the data science admissions manager at Codeup. San Antonio Startup Week is important to me because this is actually 1 year ago today. I arrived in San Antonio and got a very quick introduction to the tech community. So it's an awesome awesome event, month of events. So I hope that your experience so far has gone well. Today, the panel, just for a little bit of kind of a timetable for what we're looking at, we're going to be sharing a bit about transitioning into the tech field. Our panelists will be speaking until roughly 12:40 or so, at which point we'll open up the floor to live audience Q&A. So, really, we're gonna dive into, specifically from the Codeup context, but also more broadly, we're gonna talk about getting into the field of tech, which is obviously a broad thing, and we'll kind of break down a little bit how there's lots of different things in that. But basically, whether you've been interested in a career in tech for a while or you're just kind of getting started, it's good to kind of map out a journey and consider some of the factors involved with it. Basically, what we want to help you, see a little bit of what that journey looks like. So today, most of the folks here are from Codeup, and so just for those of you who are unfamiliar with what Codeup is a Texas-based career accelerator with its first and largest campus right here in downtown San Antonio. This accelerator helps people of all backgrounds launch careers in tech, specifically the fields of web development and data science. We do this through an immersive, full-time, project-based model, which prepares students with not only the technical skill set to begin their career in tech, but also the professional profile and skills to actually turn that into a job, which is the kind of what we view as the key piece of this process, is actually beginning your career in a role that can help you to kind of kick things off and develop over many years in the field. So today I'm joined by Caitlin Studley-potter, Liza Gomez, and Ted Zamarron. And I'd like for all of you, if you don't mind, maybe starting with Caitlin, just to give a brief introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work as the director of delivery for the Dallas campus, which is a fancy way of saying I'm the campus director. So I manage student and staff experience for our location in downtown Dallas. And I also work as the professional development coordinator. So I partner with my career coaches to deliver training and coaching on professional development and interpersonal skills for students throughout the program so that they have the skills they need to be successful in a development environment, as well as all of the things they need to be successful, including resumes, LinkedIn profiles, personal branding, to be successful in their job search. So my goal is to hand off the most polished students to Liza and her team as they work at placing them in different companies around Texas and beyond. My individual background is in HR, operations, recruiting, all of that good stuff. So I've got lots of experience on helping students get hired, as well as hiring developers and designers and project managers myself.
Great. So as Caitlin mentioned, I work with our students. I take the handoff from Caitlin, and as the manager of employer partnerships, I work specifically on the placement team. So I work with our students post-graduation, although we're still involved in their in-class experience, working hand in hand with Caitlin, her team, which includes the instructors, student success coaches, and our professional development team. In my role, I help to build external relationships with with hiring managers, recruiters, and companies who are looking to bring talent into their company, both in San Antonio, across the state, and sometimes across the country as well. I get the privilege of working with students like Ted and being able to see their journey from beginning to placed as a software developer. And we also work with placing our data scientists as well.
Okay, I'll bring up the tail end, I guess. Going down the line, as Liza said, I am a former alumni. I went through Codeup, graduated, worked with Liza, and got placement. So right now, as you can see, I am a software engineer with the company of Olo. It is a remote job, so I don't have to move anywhere. But I'm here, and I am here to tell you Codeup worked, basically.
Great. Thanks so much, Ted. Appreciate it. So I want to start out just, kind of looking at the front end of the transition into tech. So again, I work in admissions at Codeup, but before that, there's for anyone who's kind of looking to transition, there's kind of several steps that go into that process, and it does take a bit of time. And I want to emphasize that it is a process, and you may go through different iterations of what you want your tech brand to be. But the important thing is that you're kind of going through that process, mapping it out for yourself. And taking the steps to prepare for that. So one of the first things I would say, kind of part of building a career in tech involves thinking about what you want to be doing. So there are tons of options out there, and I think tech is definitely one of those areas where you may start your process by saying, "Hey, I want to work in tech," and that seems like kind of the one thing. But then the more you research into it, you realize, oh, that could mean so many different things. That could be working on in a software job, hardware job, nothing to do with technical. There's plenty of non-technical tech jobs in the field. So, I would say, kind of an early process is starting to explore what options are out there. And definitely as you're going through this process, I would encourage you to explore as many as you can, because, you may go in with kind of an idea of, oh, maybe, I want to be a developer, but realize through the process that the skill set that you're going to develop and what your day-to-day in working in that job may not be kind of what you had envisioned initially. And so I would definitely encourage you to be looking to talking to people. So whether it's family or friends that already work in the field, or just seeking out people through places like LinkedIn, or going on YouTube and seeing people who kind of share about day in the life type things. Getting that firsthand experience of what is going to be, part of this career that you're going to be doing. The second thing I would say that's really important is try, if you can, to get some sort of hands-on experience with whatever, once you've narrowed a little bit, and you're like, okay, I want to kind of pursue, let's say it's web development or data science, or working as an IT manager or something like that. Try to get some sort of hands-on experience. At Codeup, we offer free workshops, both on the data science and web development sides of things. So we have HTML and CSS workshops, as well as introductions to Python and machine learning workshops. These are really helpful for just starting at the ground level and getting your hands actually on some of the skills that you'll be using in these fields. So would definitely encourage you to get that experience. And then once you've kind of decided on a path, consider what you need to do to get there. So, certainly there's tons of resources out there for self-study. At Codeup, we've seen that our model of really a full-time immersive program is really going to be, it's going to be something that it gives you the structure as well as the skills and resources to get where you need to be in a quick and efficient method. Basically, when we work with people in the admissions process, we get people from all different backgrounds. So we're very familiar with working with people who are veterans, who are teachers, who are in retail, all sorts of different backgrounds. And what we would say basically is just be prepared in the admissions process. There's typically going to be a couple of steps, namely some interviews as well as some technical assessments. We again want people to be set up for success in launching their career, and so at Codeup, that means that we want to make sure to get to know you first and foremost. So we'll be asking you some questions, interview style, just or more of a conversation at the beginning, just to get to know who you are, what it is that you've been doing, and kind of maybe any relevant skills relevant to this path of either web development or data science that you may already have, because that'll kind of determine what you need to do in terms of preparation to get into one of these programs. So we'll ask that, and then there will be some technical assessments as well as part of that, and that's fairly common for other boot camps as well, or other educational institutions. There's oftentimes some sort of technical skill that you need. It's typically not a very high level. I mean, at least for the Codeup admissions process, it's not like you have to have a background in computer science or something to pass. It's really you need to have some kind of foundational skills in some of the math and logic a little bit, but it's really not a huge barrier to entry. It's something that really can kind of affirm whether this is a direction you want to go through. If you can get through these, it gives you some momentum. It's also helpful for us because it shows that you kind of have some foundation that you can build on in a quick and efficient manner. So that's what we look for. And then also just, like in any field, it's really important to be considering your professionalism and kind of your professional skill set. So that's everything from, interviewing skills, as well as just collaboration and teamwork. As part of a Codeup cohort, or in most other learning programs, you'll be working with other students as well. And it's really important to demonstrate going through this process that you have possess those skills to be basically communicating well with others, and then ultimately presenting your case to a future employer of why it is that you want to be entering the field. So that's kind of the admissions side of things, and a little bit more of the front end. But I want to switch over to Caitlin to give a little view into what it looks like on the delivery side at Codeup, as well as just kind of general instructional piece of building this career.
Yeah, absolutely. So once students are actually in the program, our goal as what we refer to as the delivery team, which is made up of our instruction staff as well as our career coaches and some of our support staff. Our goal is to make sure that students not only have the technical knowledge that they need, but also that they have the interpersonal skills and just the overall professional development skills they need to be successful in an environment as well as in their job search. So what that looks like is the campus directors are responsible for managing student experience. So that includes anything like if a student is struggling to keep up with the curriculum or maybe needs some additional mentoring or tutoring. We're really focused on managing the experience from that point, right? Keeping an eye on grades, any kind of support that a student might need. The reality is not every single person learns the same way. And so sometimes we need to just make sure we can connect with students on a really personal level. Which is also part of the reason why we don't have enormous, class sizes, so that we can make sure our instructors and our students have time to connect and follow up on anything that they might need assistance with. In addition to the professional development curriculum that runs alongside the technical curriculum. So students go through, each of the grading periods. They are, always actively aware of where they stand academically. And then we have a team of career coaches that help administer some of the professional development skills throughout the program. So that can include resume development, personal branding, so things like LinkedIn, any kind of online or employer-facing touch points, things like cover letters, all of those different pieces. And so the delivery team is really focused on everything from that final kind of admissions process, right? So that those final conversations of, interviewing and making sure that someone's a good fit for the program, all the way through their technical training, their soft skills training, all the way up until Liza's team, the placement team, is able to put them in a job. And so our whole focus is taking a really well-rounded approach on what does it take to make a successful student, right? So you can be the best academically and have 100%, but we also need to make sure that you're strong and can interview well as well, right? So that you can actually talk about the things that you know how to do. So our job is to be out in the field, making sure we're collecting every data point that we can, making sure we're discussing and partnering with the placement team to find out what are our employers asking for, right? We're curating specific feedback from employers and our technical advisory board, which are businesses that have hired Codeup grads who come around a couple times a year to actually tell us how they're performing in the field. And if there are things we can be training our students better in, or doing something differently in terms of their job search or their resumes to make them more appealing to them and other employers. And so that's the core focus of the delivery team. So my goal is always to hand Liza the most polished student so that it's as easy as possible for her to take them and put them in an interview slot with a company. And hopefully that student will get through that interview process and sail through it because their technical knowledge is strong and they're able to get through the behavioral as well as the technical pieces and actually land that. And so it's a really strong partnership with both teams, right? Admission, so we know what we're screening for, because as students go through the program, we're able to identify some things that are really strong indicators of someone's success, as well as maybe some flags for, hey, this person maybe needs to be a little bit stronger on this, or we have some concerns with this, all the way through that feedback loop with the placement team of, hey, you know, we really need to be focused more on this aspect with our students, or they're not interviewing well for this. And so we are, in its truest sense, we are just one big feedback loop and constantly iterating to get better and better and learning. You know, the industry is always changing. Employers are always developing new strategies and using different technologies. And so our goal is to make sure that we are doing our very best to be responsive to what the market needs actually are. And so, yeah, that's kind of what delivery focuses on, as well as just we get to do some of the really fun stuff like spirit days and making sure graduation is super fun. And then we partner with the marketing team to make sure our students have really awesome swag and things like that. So we get to do a lot of the really fun stuff, but we're also the ones who will, have those kind of heart-to-heart life coach conversations to figure out is this the right fit for somebody and how can we really help them achieve their goals. And I think that that's probably one of the best parts of my job. So.
Thanks so much, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Liza, you want to take us through a little bit about what the placement process looks like and kind of actually entering the, a career?
Absolutely. So to round out the student journey here at Codeup, once our students graduate, they are then developers and they start to work with us. On our side, as Caitlin mentioned, it's a big feedback loop. We work very collaboratively with each other. And when we receive the developers after graduation, we at that point have a really great understanding of each student, and we start to learn about what their background is, where they came from, what skills they had in previous jobs. And we take those skills and we kind of create an entire applicant profile. So who you want to be, who you were, we combine those together and we start your job hunt with you. As you go through this process, you're working hand in hand with a manager of employer partnerships. There are 3 of us on our team currently, and we each work directly with a cohort. So I work specifically with Ted and his Fortuna cohort that graduated a few months ago. And that process for us starts at about the midway point in their student journey. So about 8 to 10 weeks into the program, we go in, we introduce ourselves to the cohort, and we conduct what we call one-on-one interviews with each student. And this is an opportunity for us to get to understand, the type of company ideally you'd like to work at, what skills you come with. Are you enjoying front end, back end? What is it that drove you to become a developer? Where does that passion lie? And we take all of this information to create that profile. From there, we go on our end, and what our developer students don't see is we are actively engaging with LinkedIn networks, with job search boards, and with other connections that Codeup staff and employees have. And we are meeting with external leaders to talk about Codeup. There's this misconception that in order to enter the tech field, you need to have a degree. Well, that is one qualification that can land you a job. It is not the only qualification that puts you into play. We work with those business leaders to help them understand the Codeup program. We talk about the skills our developers are learning both technically and professionally. And we essentially take Codeup, We give them a tour of the program. We break it down. We show them profiles of students. And that way they can understand that when they are bringing on a developer from Codeup, that they're not just bringing someone that they're going to have to onboard and train. Obviously, that's part of it, but that our developers are quick to learn. In a 5-month career accelerator going Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, our developers learn to learn quickly and to learn efficiently. So we have that conversation with developers and we have that conversation with employers. In those meetings we have with employers, we also kind of break down and start to learn about what is it you're looking for, what's going to be a great fit for your company. And that way we can then turn to our developers and we do intentional matching. So we say, hey, you know what? A developer like Ted, his personality, his background fits very well with what you're looking for at your company. Not only is he going to be a great asset, but he's going to be ready to hit the ground running. And he's going to join that culture fit that you're looking for. So we take the employer process, we take the student journey, we combine those together to create the best possible outcome for our developers. So once you graduate, you're not done with us. Once you graduate, an entire new process starts and we are working hand in hand. I work collaboratively with Caitlin, the other director of delivery, and the entire team to get to know our students. We bring them in, we have meetings after they graduate from the program, and we stay in communication until that offer letter is signed. And even then, as you can see, Ted continues to stay with us. He's always part of the Codeup family, and we continue to be there for all alumni for support to help them not just find a job in tech, but to secure a career from there on out.
Thanks so much, Liza. Yeah, it's kind of helpful to hear about that that final piece, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. All the preparation then pays off in actually launching that new career. So appreciate you sharing that, and appreciate Caitlin as well for speaking through her piece. Really excited that we have Ted with us today to kind of speak to his journey a bit. Someone who knows this process perhaps even better than all of us, because he's gone through all the steps prior to Codeup, in Codeup, and then now working in the field. So Ted, I think I would love just to start by hearing you share about some important pieces of your story pre-Codeup.
Sure. So to kind of I'm pulling from everyone here, because it's like everyone says, it's a huge process. Starting off, I honestly, before I came to Codeup, I was a courier. I worked as a contractor through FedEx delivering. So, and to speak on that as well, like Liza was saying, I don't have a degree. I went to school for education, and I want to be a history teacher. So I am like the farthest point from tech as possible. Prior to Codeup, honestly, I mean, I went through high school courses, where they did, program this. Hey, look, it says this, like a hello world or something. Hey, I learned how to code. Like that was it growing up, I've always had an interest in it, to be honest with you. And my knowledge prior to Codeup was through like YouTube videos, watching, this is how they program this. This is how you do this, so I really didn't have much experience. That's prior Codeup. And then just kind of like adding what you were saying, Stuart, like when I was applying through Codeup, well, let me actually take a step back. I was actually told about Codeup through an employer. So my story was, my wife works in tech, and I was actually wanted to join the tech. So I was like, you know what, my wife works there. Let me get a little referral inside. And I was applying for a program tester, and I actually got hired. The only problem is they are a federal level, so I need security clearance. And during my wait time, I would have to wait anywhere from 6 to 8 months before my clearance was approved. During that time, they put you on what they call the bench, and you basically just sit there and you do busy work until you're processed, so that you can actually deal with the programming and the code and everything else. Since I had no formal, they really didn't feel comfortable waiting that long and for having me just kind of sit there. So they actually told me, you know what, why don't you go out and get some kind of formal education, and then we'll be happy to look at you again. They actually at the time were saying, hey, we hire a lot from this boot camp. It's, you know, Codeup, we hire quite a bit of them. Why don't you try them? To be honest with you, I was skeptical. You know, I've heard horrible things about boot camps, and people go through and then they come out and it's a waste of money. You know, you're better off going to a 4-year college. So I looked at them. To be honest with you, I was hesitant. I waited for a few months before I actually went through with it. What really got to me was just the fact that they kind of put their money where their mouth was. Like it was, hey, we're gonna get you hired, you know, within this amount of time. If not, we can talk about, you know, other processes. And they also did the tuition. You know, for me, the tuition back was huge because, you know, for me to say, I'm going to pay you this much, and if you don't go through on your side, you're going to just give me the money back. Wow. You know what I mean? And I applied. I actually talked to one of the other administrators, and they started talking with me. And like you said, Stuart, I went through many interviews with them. You know, like just one was just talking to me. You know, who are you? Why do you want to do this? What are you looking to get out of it? Um, Technical service, and like you said, it was more of math. You know, cognitive. Like if you did this, what would happen? Or here's a couple of math skills. You know, do this. And I'm like, well, what does this have to do with tech? You know, I don't understand. But obviously, I made it through. They said I was a great fit. Um, to go a little bit on Caitlin's side, they were really personable, to be honest with you, because they give you questions, you know, prior to, it was actually 101 of them, you know, and they're like, hey, do these. And you're Googling, you're trying to figure out, well, how do I do this? You know, how do I figure this out? And to be honest with you, like, if anyone's interested, like, do as many as you can, because that actually helped me a lot during the process, you know, referring back, like, hey, I remember that. Let me go, hey, I did that already. Yeah, okay. So that, like, yeah, okay, I get the understanding. Um, but to go on the personal side, I was actually supposed to be in the cohort prior to Fortuna. And I actually was hospitalized and actually didn't get a chance to get involved into that cohort. So I reached out to, you know, the admin side and was like, hey, I had some things come up. What's going on? Because I don't think I'm going to make it to, you know, my start date. And so they were really good. And they were like, well, we can push you back. You know, one cohort, your start date would be this, you know, it'd be a few months later. Is that good enough for you? You know, do we need to maybe look further? And I told them, no, that would be fine. You know, I appreciate that. So, and they would reach out to me every so often afterwards, like, hey, how are you feeling? Like, is everything still good to go? You know, I just wanted to touch base. You know, how are you doing? And so to me, that kind of felt like I wasn't just a number. I wasn't just someone that was paying them money. You know, I actually kind of felt a little connection to it. And yeah, I thoroughly, to be honest with you, I enjoyed the beginning process. It was nerve wracking because here I am about to come into a text going, they're like, you don't need education, you know, you don't need to know anything about it. I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, I don't understand. And it played out at the end, to be honest with you. But pre-Codeup, like that was basically all my pre-Codeup, leading up to Codeup, I should say.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing all that, Ted. And I guess one question, you know, kind of in that lead up to Codeup, when you think about, you know, obviously there's lots of, you said that, you know, your spouse was in the tech field already, and you know, what were some of the driving factors, I guess, that kind of leaned you towards the field of web development, software development?
To be honest with you, software development in general, I really wasn't actually think about it. Like my idea into the tech world was either like you were doing something with the server, you know, back end, you were creating web pages that everyone can see, and then everything else. Once I started actually talking to people in the field, I realized that there's different sections and knowledgeable. For me, honestly, I love creating things. I love creating things and helping people. To be honest with you, so my idea was I could actually be a developer, work for some kind of company, develop something, and somebody out there is going to benefit from it. You know, whether it be uh, a startup that's, you know, starting like a MySpace or a Facebook type of app, you know, that could have communications, or to where like I ended up in Olo, you know, we create applications, we handle the applications for restaurants and things, so online ordering. You know, well, nowadays with the pandemic, that's huge. And so like anything that I work on and do, it's helping someone get food somewhere, you know, that they don't have to worry about anything. And to me, I that just incites me, you know, to know that something I typed, someone is using something that I created and it's helping them. Like that was my driving force behind the tech world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of a meshing of a couple things. Sounds like cool. So to tell me a little bit more about like what your you know, yeah, you shared a little bit about your job, but do you mind sharing a little bit about kind of how that transition was for you, and then you know, just the experience of that, and then also what like some of the kind of day-to-day roles look like at your in your role at your company.
Sure. Leading up to the company, to be honest with you, like Liza was saying, we worked really close with placement. After we graduated, honestly, it felt like a whole nother course, because it's like Liza would get information and say, hey, like this company's interested in this. Like you know, who knows this kind of knowledge for those that are already in the tech world. You know, for those of us that weren't, she would get, hey, like there's a company that might start looking for this if you want to start looking into these programs. Um, the meetings that we would have with Liza, you know, she would just talk about, hey, I see you guys are doing this. I see you guys are interactive. Like, that's good. You know, like you're marketing yourself, you're branding yourself out there. You're not just, I graduated, someone hired me. You know, it's not how it works. You know, it's in this field, it's very demanding. Um, Once I actually got hired, um, it's a whole new world, to be honest with you. But I can honestly say, like, the things that I learned at Codeup has helped me tremendously in my position, because through Codeup we learn the basics. You know, you learn the fundamentals of how to read a language, how to learn a language, how to, you know, interpret that language and use it to do what you need it to do. And with that knowledge, I was actually able to learn a different language, which we use here in the company, and I was able to pick it up really quick, like very very fast. I was able to pick that up. Here in the company, there it's so much, so much, and I can honestly say, like, what you do at Codeup, I feel like is like a company level type projects and stuff. Because like the projects we would do during Codeup is like, you know, hey, there's a, you know, coffee shop that wants you to make a simple front page for them. Do it, and like you're programming everything. You know, I got to make it look like this. When you click on this, it's got to do this, and the back end, it's got to send this information. Like, and it's just nerve wracking. But then you do it, and you're like, I mean, it's not, you know, Starbucks or anything, but it works. And then you get to a company, and you're like, okay, what am I doing? And they're like, oh, you're just, you know, just make the drop down show everything. That's it. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? Do I have to make the drop down? They're like, no, it's already made. Like, you just got to implement the function to it. And I'm like, well, okay, that's not a problem. Like, I could do that. Um, but day to day, I mean, it's honestly, it's a lot of the stuff that we learned through Codeup. Like the organization has helped me quite a bit with this, because it's a lot. Like, there is tons of things. It's not just, you know, open something up and start coding. It's like, you got to check in here, you got to put an update here, you got to come over here and make sure this is still working. Once you do that, you got to come over here and you got to make sure it tests, and you got to reach out to these people and say, hey, can you back me up? Can you make sure I did it right? I didn't, you know, mess anything up on your side. And there's a lot of communication, and a lot of that was really pushed and molded with us with Codeup. Was to, like, they were adamant, you know, you need to communicate, you need to make sure you're not alone. You know, you may feel like you're alone, but you're not. Like, you're part of a team. And to be honest with you, like, it never really hit home until I got the job. And then I was just like, okay, it makes sense. It totally makes sense now. Like, I get it. And it's just, to be honest with you, like, as here at work, a lot of stuff I'll actually end up looking back at Codeup, like, hey, I remember doing something like that. It's a different language, but let me just get that and translate it into this. Okay, hey, it works. Hey guys, what do you think of this? Oh, it works. Okay, yeah, that's great. So I mean, it's a smooth transition, but you really have to you have to work at it. It's not just going to be handed to you on a silver platter. Just because you say, hey, I graduated from Codeup, they're not gonna be like, oh, here's a job. You really got to work on it itself. Like the branding part of it is definitely strong with the tech community, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's always a good piece to remember. It's gonna be a change, especially if you're coming from a different different field. But yeah, it's definitely possible. And just curious, how large is your team that you're working with now?
Right now, to be honest with you, there's only like 7 of us.
Gotcha. So yeah, and for those on the call, we there's a large range of people that employers that that require these types of roles, and so that's cool to hear that Ted, you've got kind of a smaller team that you're working with. So that'll look different than at a bigger place.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, like our team, the team was actually a lot larger. Like you're looking at like 20, 30 people probably. But as this company is growing, they are starting to break that off into smaller chunks. And so like I'm part of a smaller team, but part of a bigger like umbrella, and then it just keeps going up that chain. So that's what it seems like a lot of companies are doing, just talking to like fellow cohorts and stuff. They're like, oh, we're part of this huge team, but they're breaking us down into 8 to 10 people, and that's like our team. So it seems like that's kind of being the norm per se. But I'm just happy enough that it's a small team. Like it literally feels like I'm in a small little Codeup group, as a project, and just being like, hey, I got a question for you. And so the only difference is just the remote feel, getting used to talking to somebody on remote instead of just turning around and being like, hey, I got a question for you. That's the only difference. But it's with Codeup, it's been a really easy transition with that as well.
Awesome. And I guess one final thing is like, for someone listening, what's like one piece of advice, maybe one piece of advice, just kind of, going through a tech transition or transition into tech in general, as well as maybe specifically one for, looking at Codeup in general, what would be, pieces of advice?
To be honest with you, just don't be afraid to ask questions. To be honest, like throughout the entire time, like I would ask a simple question, and there would be times, I'll be honest with you, that they'll go over something and I feel like I understand it, but then I look at the code during the curriculum and I'm just like, I blank, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm actually doing. Like it made sense when they were walking through it, and now I'm lost. And I would sit there for a little bit, just because I look around and everyone's coding. So, and I was like one of the few in my cohort that came from a no experience. I had no prior tech experience. So I kind of felt like I left out a little bit. But as it progressed, I've realized, hey, this person next to me, they came from a background in tech, but they're just as lost as I am. So let's learn together, So definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. Like there is no, I know it's always told to you during school, but it really does apply. Like there is no dumb question. The dumb question is a question you don't ask. The other thing I would really say is with the tech community in general that I found out with different careers is because the day is over doesn't mean you're technically over. Like there's been plenty of times where I'll learn, but I really want to get it, like I really want to maybe understand a little bit more. So I would learn a little bit more outside of class. The other thing is, I know Liza would always promote this afterwards, but we did it during class, is we would have after class sessions. So literally don't be afraid to take like an hour of your time after class and just sit there and ask questions with just your peers, because you'll learn to see, hey, you learned it this way. I understand it that way, but not the way the instructor taught me. And it works. So the community is huge. Everyone's very friendly. They're intimidating, but very friendly. And definitely it is, even with Codeup in general, it's just one big family, to be honest with you.
Awesome. That's terrific advice, Ted. Thanks so much. We want to make sure that we leave some time for people in the audience to ask any questions. So at this point, we'd love to begin that live Q&A process. If anyone has any questions for anyone on the panel. Don't be shy.
I was like, it's here. We're here.
Not
There's,
not even one question for us.
I was like, there's no, to
Some-
be honest with you, like if even if it's just a question like on what day-to-day basis I do, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Well, if there's nothing at the moment, and feel free to drop questions, as we're going. But just to, I guess one other question that I would want to ask, maybe hear from each of you. What is like, because we come at this from different sides of things, but I guess generally speaking, maybe Caitlin, start with you. Like, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's hoping to transition into tech in general?
Oh, all right. What's one piece of advice? I would definitely say exploring is a really important part, right? I think on the surface, tech seems like it's really only a couple of things. There are just a wealth of opportunities in all different kinds of places. And thankfully, there are lots of free resources, including like Codeup offers free workshops. So I'm a huge proponent of trying stuff out and utilizing what's free and available. I think that's what's so wonderful about career accelerators and boot camps is that they really provide context for the information and really help provide an on-ramp into the industry. But I think it's so important to explore, connect with people, network, go to meetups, really just get a feel for what are you trying to get yourself into, right? Because going to a bootcamp or any kind of career accelerator is a huge commitment. Time, effort, money, no matter where you go, it's a really big deal. So I would say explore all your options and remember that everyone is welcome in this industry. I think that's another thing, kind of like Ted had mentioned, right? Like sometimes we tend to make assumptions of, well, I don't have any background in tech, or I'm not into, math, or I'm not, whatever, insert your reason here. We can always find reasons to exclude ourselves when really it's and it should be one of the most inclusive industries around, because there are so many different roles and companies and places, and everyone's voice and perspective is valuable. And so I think those are super important to remember. There's no reason you shouldn't be in tech. I think it's just a matter of figuring out what you want to do, and then how can the people around you and in your network, and how can you build the network that's going to support you and help you actually get there. So I think that would be my advice.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. Liza, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think my piece of advice would be to know and remember that you're not alone. So if you're feeling intimidated, if you decide to do a job search, what does a Java developer do? What does a front-end engineer do? When you pull up those qualifications of what they're looking for, it's definitely intimidating, and you worry about, will I ever get there? How do I learn that? But if you're sitting looking at that computer screen and you're wondering, how can I do that? You're not the only person doing that. And the best thing is to, just take one step, even if it's a baby step, explore Codeup's website, reach out to someone like Stuart. We have Haley who works with our web development team. And the questions you ask, I can almost guarantee that I'm sure someone else has asked that question before. Someone else has felt, the intimidations, sometimes the fear, the anxiety that you're holding within you. And if you can surround yourself with a community like Caitlin suggested, join meetup groups, participate in, the startup week that's going on here, reach out to other attendees, to panelists, and just know that you are supported in, when you take that first step. And if you choose a program like Codeup, as we talked about, we go through the full student journey. So you are never alone, and you continue to be supported until you're ready to go off and do your thing.
Yeah, it's definitely and Codeup is just one piece of a much broader San Antonio tech ecosystem, which is a very, very accessible ecosystem. I've only been in San Antonio for about a year, but I could count on multiple hands, people who would be willing to have conversations with people, grab coffee, kind of speak to what these different options are that are available, even in, just in this city alone, and then broader, elsewhere kind of in the industry. And one thing that, unless anyone else has any other questions, I'm not seeing any in the Q&A, but I guess one piece what I would ask is basically say that when you're looking at this, think about entering this field as like any other skill set. It's going to take some time to develop, and it's not an overnight process, and that's okay. The feelings of intimidation are real, and really breaking things down into smaller pieces, and chopping them up for yourself as you look into into transitioning. It's very, very helpful. And then another thing is, once you are going through that process, think about the things that you're interested in already, because it's more than likely that if you have a passion or a hobby, there's some way to incorporate one of those things into it. Like, how can I do a project related to this interest that I have and put it in the context of this new tech career? It looks like we have a question here. So how can you decide if data science or website development is best for you? Are they both very different or similar? Also, when does each course start? So I'll kind of go with these in order. Great questions, first of all. So one thing you can think of in terms of data science, if you're someone who's really mathy, you're analytical, you like working with numbers and data, or you like working with spreadsheets, that's something that kind of fascinates you. You're interested in puzzles, and I would say that's probably a great fit for you. If you're someone who really, really wants to do a lot of coding, and someone who is interested in kind of maybe some of more of the design elements, web development has elements of front-end development, which is looking at the form and the look and feel of a website, and then we also have the form and function, which is kind of the back end. And so there's there's multiple ways to look at that, and that's definitely something that if you're kind of inclined that way, and or maybe you don't like numbers as much, working with math is kind of, it's not all math, but there's definitely a good bit of that. That might be something where you might want to steer a little bit towards the web development side of things. So they are, I would say they're the areas that overlap. There's lots of problem solving. There's coding, you're working with computers, and it's kind of in this broader tech industry, but they are very different in terms of the roles that you would be looking for after, and the skill sets that you would be developing and using. Those do diverge pretty, I would say, pretty quickly. And then just when does each course start? So we have our next web development course starting in very, very soon, November 2nd, it's coming up. Data science, we're looking at December 7th. But the web development courses are roughly every 2 months, and then the data science courses are about every 4 to 5 months. And then regarding the living in Dallas or San Antonio, can everything be done remote? It's currently remote. At some point we will be entertaining the possibility of doing some in person, but for the time being, due to the pandemic, everything is remote. So being in Dallas or San Antonio is not a requirement. It looks like we have one other question. Does your curriculum include stored procedures? That is a good question. Caitlin or Liza or Ted?
I believe that it does. I would have to double check and confirm, but I think that it does. Let me see if I can phone a friend right now. In my defense, I'm the newest Codeup member here, so. You can access more information about our curriculum on our website, though, so feel free to check that out. It's got some more details about what exactly it covers for both data science and web development.
We do have it looks like possibly with SQL, that might be one area where
I think that's where it gets covered. Yeah.
We did a lot with SQL, but yeah, I say the curriculum, like, just because I was there a few months ago, I don't know if it's changed or not with the tech industry. Like, it's like, buying a computer. You buy one, and the moment you buy it, there's something brand new already coming out. So we do that. I can also say maybe a little bit with the remote, not only course-wise, I know it's remote, but job opportunities. I mean, right here, our company is based in New York, and they are basically almost 65 to 75% remote throughout the entire nation. So there are remote jobs out there. You just really got to look for them and make sure that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, these are great questions. Looks like we just have a couple more minutes. Any final questions for folks? What else? What else?
I will say, if it helps anyone, like if you have questions that you kind of want to ask on the side or after this is over, like feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me, whatever it may be. I am open to questions. Like, it don't matter. Like Liza can tell you, I'm one of the people that you need help, I'm right there with you. Like I will help you as best as I can when I have any free time. Then, which is somewhat kind of a lot, but not really. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, and the same goes for me, and I think any of us, most of us can be reached at our first name at codeup.com. So for me, it'd be Stuart at codeup.com, and also, if you're looking at Codeup, and again, whether it's for attendance of Codeup or just kind of general questions about entering this field, those are things that we can help answer, and certainly, we can also help point you in the right direction. We want to be a resource that can help say, hey, okay, it sounds like you may have started looking at web development, but based on your background and your skill set, you potentially could be a good fit for data science. Let's look at that, or vice versa. Or it's a journey that definitely, don't feel like you have to do it alone. I'll give about one more minute, and then otherwise we may wrap up about a minute or two early. Ella, great question. There is no application fee, and I would say that with the courses coming up, submit your application today if you have time. I know for both the upcoming classes, we're on a very, very tight deadline, about 2 weeks out for the web development classes, less than 2 weeks now, but about a week to 2 weeks for both of them to kind of get that process completed for the next class. Like I said, there will be ones after, but the application takes just about I would say 3 minutes. 3 to 4 minutes, depending on how much you put in the like why are you looking at Codeup question. It's really, really quick. Just go to codeup.com/apply, and I'll throw that in the chat as well.
I guess I'd add on to that, if it comes up and they're like, hey, you're great for the next class, and something personal comes up, like I said with me,
Yeah.
just reach out to them. Like they will help you as best as they can. If it's throw you into the next class or down the line or anything like that. So.
Yeah, great question. It's so data and web development course is 5 months, so they start at different times. Yeah, the course is, it's actually now about 5.5 months, 22 weeks. We've gone from 20 to 22 weeks, just with a slight change in schedule on our Wednesday class, which is now a half day. That being said, in terms of like overall length, the course will, depending on which one, it may be slightly longer than others. For example, the classes coming up that are going to have we have about a week and a half off over the holidays in the winter, so that will extend the class time a little bit. But both courses are, the 5.5. They're both are 22 weeks, 670 hours of curriculum. So yeah, they're the same length. These are great questions, by the way.
And to add on that, Stuart, if you don't mind, that actually is beneficial of it starting so forth, because once you get to the end of it and you're doing your final project, you actually will talk to the next cohort coming up and being like, hey guys, I know it looks scary, but you can do it. Like, and so you already get internal support within cohorts, who's just a few weeks ahead of you, a month ahead of you, or whatever it may be. So that starts the process right there. So they run parallel to each other, but at the same time, don't be afraid to reach out to the other cohorts. Like, once you get in, it's literally, you have the Codeup family, then you have the local tech community, and then you have the tech community. So it is just an intro to the family, to be honest with you.
Definitely. All right. Well, we are right at 1 o'clock, so we will be wrapping up here. But thank you all for taking the time to tune in. We really appreciate it. We hope that there was, even if it was just one small thing that's going to stick in your mind, or that you could take forward as you explore the tech field. We hope that's our goal. And like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to chat.